Continue right now, sir.
Yes. Namaste. Good evening. Sorry for this little delay. There was a high-speed network here. We were trying to connect to that, but finally it did not work. I am speaking today from Shimla, a different location, and now I am reverting to my own simple network, which I have on my iPhone. In other words, these technical factors caused some delay. So, friends, welcome to this event this Thursday evening. We have this topic, loneliness, a thought created trap, a self created trap. People complain of loneliness, people cry, people express so much of discomfort, call it sorrow, whatever, and very few realize that there is no true loneliness, it is an illusion created by thought. When someone actually gets out of the psychological trap, there is a great beauty in that freedom that she or he experiences. It is expressed in this way: even being amidst a noisy crowd, a person can actually feel great peace, great relaxation. All that noise, all that din and roar does not disturb her or him. And that is called aloneness. When one is free of disturbances, one is in fact enjoying, whether one is amidst a crowd or in the midst of woods, going or walking by, let us say, a river, or going around a little lake. Generally, we think that the surroundings have to be peaceful. All of us do appreciate peaceful surroundings. All our Krishnamurti campuses have many acres of land and lot of vegetation, lot of birds and other beautiful aspects of nature. And no one denies that such surroundings are precious. But talk to people who have been living there only for months or years. It is sad that people who have been there for a very long time, slowly, I'm not saying everybody, but good number of them actually stop noticing the natural beauty. The culprit is, even though they are in such peaceful natural surroundings, thought, that is thinking, does its usual mischief. They soon get lost in their memories. If they are working for the organization, for the school, for the study center, etc., thought hijacks them and they are all the time thinking about some difference of opinion with somebody, somebody's criticism of them, or feeling guilty about what they did or said in some situation. So I don't want to elaborate more on what we mean by thought. This is thought. When one is unable to see the trees, one is unable to hear the chirping of the birds, one is unable to watch the beautiful river flowing by, then what is one doing? One is lost in thoughts of some events, some persons, and memories of some incidents. Thus, it is a psychological trap. And then we say we feel lonely. We have nobody with us. This is a treacherous world, we say. Nobody is trustworthy. We use all kinds of words to blame this world. While natural beauty plays a certain role, the onus or the major responsibility is upon us only. If we are not attentive to what thought is doing, if we are careless, if we are in some kind of hallucination, then how can we blame the world at all? But, friends, a question needs to be taken up. Why do we connect this scenario with loneliness? Let us just say it is conflicts in human relationships. It is how we disturb each other's peace of mind. Let us call it a matter of lack of harmony between different individuals. Why bring this expression loneliness? Let us clarify. The word loneliness is very relevant in such scenarios because when someone is unable to be in harmony, one begins to experience increased insecurity. One says to oneself, ah, this lady is not with me, that man is not with me, they have all turned against me, they have left me alone. So, this is the conclusion of thought, of thinking. Thus, we uncover a facet of our own psychology. We have been so used to having fans, admirers. We are so attached to having people who praise us, who talk well of us, in a manner of saying, if people do not talk well of us, probably we cannot digest the food that we have eaten that day. Somebody has to come and praise us. Why? It is just a bad habit. It's a bad psychological habit to always go around with a begging bowl for praise, for recognition, for good words about us. And it is a bad psychological habit to jump to the conclusion that we are left high and dry. We are afraid actually of being left to ourselves. Without examining what it means to be left to ourselves, we come to a certain conceptual frame of mind. It is the mental concept that describes our state of affairs as being lonely. This loneliness thus is intimately connected to the problem of psychological dependence. Let's say there is a couple, husband and wife, and if there is psychological dependence of the husband over the wife, upon the wife, and of the wife upon the husband, well, Someday, let's say the husband dies. Someone has to die, and very rarely both of them die on the same day. One is gone, another remains, and then she complains of unbearable loneliness. In her eyes, it is something outside that has happened. There was this husband all these days, and now my husband has left this earth. But psychologically, it's not a person outside, it's not a human being around you, but it is in your thoughts. You got so attached to, so used to, so accustomed to having somebody in your thoughts and looking at yourself in that kind of image. You define yourself in terms of being so and so's wife. There was a marriage counselor, and one unmarried girl went to him. And the unmarried girl said to him, "You advise people on marriages when marriages run into troubled waters. I am not married at all, but I wish to ask you a different question. Tell me, sir, why do I have to marry at all?" So, partly humorous, but it does have a little truth in it. The counselor said to her, "Look, young woman," she was just 22 or 23 maybe. "Look, if you do not marry, if you stay alone, and in life, whether you like it or not, things go wrong. Now, if you have a husband, you can blame it on him. If you don't have a husband, when something goes wrong, do you realize you will have nobody to blame on?" So she said, "Oh," and the joke ends saying she then decided to marry. Now, please excuse me for the humorous side of it. The truth of the matter is, in our addiction to visualizing scenarios in terms of what he said, what she said, what they did, etc., we become increasingly dependent on the so called other people, and we to escape from our responsibility, to run away from our looking at our own error, we do this or we play this blame game. So why do we fear loneliness so much? Just it is just foolishness. It is just the tendency to dodge, to postpone looking at the problem as it is. When we avoid facing loneliness, actually we are avoiding facing ourselves. We are avoiding facing, confronting the self in us. The self is built of thoughts, and this self is made of all kinds of questionable conclusions. The self is made of comparison. She has husband, and that woman has her husband still. Oh, look at that woman. Her husband is 8 years older than my husband. But you see, my husband has left me, and that much older man is still around. These are all such superficial forms of thinking. And whether it's a lady or a man, you know, the person is completely avoiding taking a look at the very nature of the sorrow of loneliness. It is in that sense we are calling it a purely psychological problem. It's not biological, it is not objective, it is not fact based, but it is based on comparison, it's based on hasty conclusions. I must say at this point that loneliness, which torments us, is just another facet of the complicated network of thoughts. What I mean is, if ambition is a facet of psychological mess, if low self esteem is another facet of psychological disorder, if fear of tomorrow or regrets of yesterday, if some judgmentalism, looking down at others without examining their credentials properly, or envying somebody, being jealous of X or Y, without actually examining whether we really are less than them, we really are less fortunate than they, without examining those things on bits and pieces of information, bits and pieces of what happened the other day, and so on, we jump to conclusion. All this is called psychological disorder. We see somebody having a very expensive car, and that evening when we come home, we are a little depressed. Now, just because he has an expensive car and I have a very modest kind of car, does it mean I need to look down at myself and I need to envy him or her? Obviously not. Life is life is 1,000 times more than what car you have, what house you have, what designation you have, what paycheck you collect every month. Life is 1,000 times larger than not only any of these, it is 1,000 times larger than all of these put together. And yet, look at the shallowness of what we call thought. Just seeing that he has a Skoda, I have only a Maruti 800. I don't know whether that model is still around, but offhand I gave an example. I neither own a Maruti or a Skoda, but he has such an expensive car, and I have a very, very economical model. Just on that little piece of information, you come home depressed, you don't get sleep at night. How silly you are. This is lack of intelligence. So, all such psychological factors can be called as different facets of that inner disorder. And I would say, oh, loneliness is one more facet. And interestingly, and in a way it is good news, all these are interconnected. You take one of them, let's say you take loneliness, and rather than getting busy with the blame game, blame your destiny, blame your fate, blame so and so, this person or that person, blame COVID 19, rather than getting into this blame game, if we can quietly notice, when I say I am lonely, what does it mean? Am I not visualizing an image of myself? And am I not taking that image to be unquestionably true? Probably, if I stare at that image could dissolve. And when there is no image whatsoever, when there is no conclusion in my mind, then leave alone beautiful 100 acres of natural campus. A sparrow sitting on a fence behind my balcony will look very beautiful. If my mind is cleared of images, my mind is freed of conclusions, if my mind is not pulled down by idea of I have been a loser, a mind freed from the tyranny of thought will enjoy the sight of a little sparrow, not even sitting on a tree, I said sitting on a fence, for there is beauty in almost everything around us. Therefore, friends, let me conclude my 2 cents of submissions here, saying loneliness is what happens when an immature mind jumps to a conclusion, judges oneself as a loser or as someone who didn't make it, someone who is unfortunate. We are not short of vocabulary. Using one or the other negative word, we label ourselves and suffer. When we question the self labeling process, there is possibly ending of loneliness. I pause here and I'm very eager to hear others. Therefore, I request that Sushil Jain should limit this question answer now for 10 to 12 minutes. Sometimes that question and answer doesn't stop at all. And then I actually feel, oh, I couldn't hear my other friends. Therefore, Jain Sahab, please regulate this Q&A, crisp questions and crisp answers, so that Arshad ji, Kaji, and Hareshwar and others also, will share some thoughts which I am very eager to, listen to. माइक ऑन कर लीजिए जैन साहब.
Satyji is also joining after 5 minutes. So anybody can ask question. Please raise hand and then ask question. Well, there is a comment on the chat box. Katyayani Suryadevara says, I think loneliness is most of the time synonymous to depression, which is medical illness that negatively affects how we feel. This is totally different from solitude that glorifies and nurtures one's inner self. Occasional loneliness due to boredom is inevitable. Thank you for the insightful talk. Thank you for those comments of yours. Okay.
Ramarao, Hyderabad. Sir, that my question is that when
yes, Ramarao, speak.
Yes, I'm going on that. Just I have to frame the question. Yeah, when means like when we are identified with our existence, our body, I feel thought is obvious. The thought is when the thought is obvious, then it creates all this drama of what you mentioned, loneliness, whatever it is, so and so, so and so. So kindly throw some light.
I didn't fully understand your question. Can you sum it up again in one sentence?
Unless until means this body existence, when I identify with the body, this what you mentioned about this loneliness or whatever it is, it exists. May I correct?
Okay.
I doubt it.
Well, yeah, philosophically correct, but you used an expression identifying with the body. Is it a choice with us? And what goes into looking at the body as this is me, I am this body and nothing else? So that's where I call it a very philosophical proposition.
It's true. What you said is true. But all of us are identified with the body. It's like saying to somebody, saying to a man, your problems are because you think you are a man. That man will blink. You mean I'm not a man? Like that, this body idea is so fundamental. Anybody would question you back. You mean I'm not the body? I'm of course the body. Therefore, it is necessary to come to some tangible observations. This becomes a bit too philosophical, I feel. Let's think more about it. Sushilji, you may request the next person among the three of them.
Harsh Tankar, sir. Harsh Tankar, sir.
Okay, I'll put a question to you. Firstly, let me say I completely agree and understand your very clear analysis about the causes of loneliness and how it's, when I was a lot younger, we all used to say it's all in the mind. And it is all in the mind. And it's created, dependency is something that it creates. And everything, I won't repeat everything you've said, but I want to put you a question and put all of us a question of loneliness in a different way. What is our relationship with somebody who is deeply lonely? How do we respond? How do we approach? What is it that we can do for somebody who is deeply lonely? Because they will, firstly, they will not experience it. Well, my experience is that they don't say it's thought. They say it's feeling. I feel depressed. I feel alone. I'm heartbroken. My feelings are hurt. It's not being created by thought. It's a state of feeling. And people lay often much more importance to feeling than to thought. Now, of course, we can say that they are related to each other, but I'm saying that if you are relating to somebody who is lonely, how do we approach them? Part of the wisdom is that we should be comforting, right? Or we should try and somehow make them feel wanted or make them feel loved or something like that so they don't feel so lonely. But this is an external application of solution to loneliness. And either it creates dependence or after a while, it doesn't help with the central question of loneliness. So two questions there. One, it's experienced as not as thought, but as feeling. And the other, the general idea of offering comfort and support to somebody who's feeling lonely. I can say from experience, it works up to a point, they feel okay, but then you can't manage it, or you withdraw, or it's too much for you, or then they're back to feeling lonely again, and probably worse because now you're not there to support them. So, is giving support a good idea? If not, then how can we approach somebody who is lonely? Telling them it's all in your mind,
Okay.
they won't like it. They don't like it.
Right. So I'll take up this issue of thought versus feeling. My understanding is the problem may be a feeling, but that feeling arises out of a thought. So one thinks of oneself in a certain way, and that generates a lot of sorrowful feelings. Just
Yes.
like in the example in Indian philosophy, there is a rope, but by mistake, if I think, I'm using the word think, if I think it is a snake, that thought that it is a snake generates the feeling and emotion of fear. Therefore, we can gently try to help that person
dilute the thought that is supporting the feeling. First of all, we agree with him. Yes, I understand you have these feelings. I sympathize with you. But can we together see what generates that feeling? Now, second part of it is comforting. I think there are immature ways of supplying comfort where you may reduce that person's dependence on somebody else who has left him or her, and then you become, somebody on whom he or she depends. You create a new dependence. You comfort somebody in such a way that every evening that person comes and pesters you. Then you will lose your freedom. That is an immature way of providing comfort. But I would endorse and approve ways of providing comfort where, while most people in the world have no time to listen at all, no time, people have no time these days for anybody else. You and I, if we care for someone, can listen and give some time, a little time, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then give that kind of comfort to that other person that, okay, somebody is listening to me. And then, even as we give that comfort to him, that yes, I am here to listen to you, in no way we should endorse some negative conclusions. If he says, for example, you see, I am such a burden on this earth. And if we say in the name of giving comfort, from some angle of view, it's right. You are actually, but confuse him and strengthen his negative emotion. That kind of providing comfort, agreeing with everything that the other person says, is going to bind that person even more. So I would, in my
But the
limited
opposite is
perception,
just as bad. If you say, no, no, you're a wonderful person, you're
correct,
great, you say, that's just as bad. Then they
correct,
come back to you for more.
correct. Neither endorse the negative thought nor say the opposite, which is another illusion.
So how, this is the question I'm putting. This is the key question. How do you do?
So how do we do?
What do we do?
Sometimes simple,
It's
yeah,
not
simple,
one or the
attentive.
other.
I think simple, attentive listening with neither say a big yes nor the opposite. We just help that person to open up more. Let him conduct the inquiry. We only become the catalyst. We don't give him the answers. We neither say you are a burden on the earth, nor do we say you are a marvelous person, mistaken or misunderstood by others. Rather, we say, what makes you, there is an expression in psychology, excavating questions. Excavating questions. So you only excavate, like this archaeologists excavate some land, to find some ancient, remnants. So we ask excavating questions. What makes you feel you are a burden? I am surprised you say this. Like that, you help him or her open up. That is the
True,
mature way of comfort.
but somebody who is say, they're saying there's nobody who cares for me. And they're right, because there isn't anybody. They're in a situation maybe created by them. Maybe they've shut people out, maybe, but they're in a situation where they're living all alone. There is nobody to care for them. They may be ill, nobody they can turn to when they fall ill. Nobody, and they become suicidal in that kind of situation. So how it's not easy to think, how do we show somebody, if we can at all, that this is something created by you in your mind, and it's your responsibility to sort it out, not somebody else's.
Sometimes some gestures like, finding some other avenues. Like, for example, we are a bunch of people who are exposed to these teachings. Uh, Rather than I myself trying to provide some comfort to X or Y, I can try to involve some of my other friends also. Can you talk to him? Can you talk to her? And in the Western society, as you know, they have organized a lot of support groups. They have organized a lot of settings in their society. That is one wonderful thing about Western society, though it doesn't completely solve the problem, but you name it, for any problem in the society, they have a support group. Single women, single men, widowers, second time, third time, fourth time divorcees. There's a bunch nowadays on internet also. I consider them, though they have limitations, an expression of caring. The Western mind cares for others in that way. Maybe on a Sunday they do a what they call charity run, collect old clothes or collect donations and give it for a cause. So some action I think would be in place. Just I'm ready to listen to you and I'm ready to talk to you. Just talking and listening would not be complete in itself. So involve others and find out some social solutions to these people. Then there could be some relief. And finally, we must know we are not God on earth. We have limitations.
We may not be able to help. But then it's a challenge to our caring, our ability for caring and compassion. That's, that's what it is. And I think that's the part that we can examine. What is
very well said.
The level of our caring? What's the level of our compassion?
Very well said. In fact, it humbles us. It makes us humble that we can't do a lot of things. In fact, sometimes in our attempt to bring some comfort to the other person, we may become more depressed than him.
Exactly. Yes.
What can we do? So,
Wagmare sir. Wagmare sir. Wagmare and then Pradeep Verma ji. Wagmare, please come forward.
Sir, I also feel what Harsha sir says. It's a feeling basically.
Yeah.
And thought only breeds it, or thought links it to some external situation, or thought enhances it. But it's a basically feeling comes out of inadequacy or lack of inner or lack of confidence or lack of inner inadequacy basically. And as the suggestion comes, it's a basically a negative energy. And what compassion and other things we are offering to such person is also a sort of positive energy. So that energy one has to understand of lack of energy. So energy phenomena we have to understand in this case. That's what I think. When the people goes to the temple or one goes to church, remain with other people, and in church there are so many things of confession and all that. In that people opens up their mind and they talk and they confess many things and then get relieved of such feelings. Other words also we see, as sir said, that if we see the rope instead of snake, snake instead of rope, that is a wrong perception. So even wrong perception can also breed to such feelings, or wrong conclusion can also breed to such feelings. As he said that thought is the main culprit in this, I'm having a little bit difference of opinion here, I think. If you compare this with aloneness also. So now what is aloneness? Aloneness is actually, in fact, it's a sort of full of energy. When one is full of energy, he is confident, he is gone above his inner lack or this thing, then he says that I am alone. Otherwise, I would like to ask Harshad sir also what is meant by aloneness then, and what is the difference between aloneness and this loneliness? Thank you.
Maybe we can hear Pradeep Verma's question.
Pradeep Verma.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Audible?
Yeah,
is it
audible.
Audible. Okay. Thank you. This, what I see is that usually this self, individual self, is considered the main culprit when we have any suffering on any suffering. But what I see is there is a huge diversity in selves, the individual self, huge diversity, and is deeply associated with psychological expressions that may end up as achievements, including great discoveries or desperation, frustration, and intense suffering. All human activities are energized by this center. Loneliness is a mental suffering that gives a strong message that can be utilized to come out of this state. After all, what is self-realization? Life is the source of everything. Now, what decides negation? What decides negation? If I say who decides, it becomes self. We may say intelligence. This we or I is the self that calls it intelligence, or assumed to be one. I know my mind is saying all this, in which I feel relaxed and relieved. Thank you very much.
So well said, so well said. So maybe go over to Harshad ji now.
Hello, are you able to hear?
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah, we are able to. Please continue.
Yes. Thank you, Swamiji. You have spoken in a very impersonal way, explaining the cause and effect. But I like to talk a little bit personally about this issue of loneliness. At present, I am reading a book. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees. And the author, who has done research on trees by staying in the forest for many, many years. And he says that even trees feel loneliness when there are no trees around. And when there are many trees around, these trees, they share their feelings, and they also warn each other if there is any danger. So trees also feel lonely, it says. And of course, human beings feel lonely. We all go through that experience. And I wanted to play two songs, very 1 and 2 minute long, but I think that the system is not working. So I will omit that. Those songs are about loneliness. And there is one lady, she is waiting for the person, her husband or lover, and it's evening time. And she feels very, very lonely because that person is not with her. And the other song is also similar. And I myself have felt tremendous loneliness in my life when I was waiting for somebody. And it was the first time in my life when I asked a girl to come to see a film with me. It was in America. And we had decided the time 5 o'clock in the evening. And since this was my first experience with any girl, and I was very much deeply attached to that girl. And I started waiting from 4 o'clock, and the time seemed very much stretching. When you are waiting, the time doesn't go. And when 5 o'clock came, she did not come. And then every minute was like 1 hour. For 10 minutes, she did not come. And during that time, so many thoughts were going on in my mind. I was thinking whether something happened to her, she is not well, or she doesn't like me, she likes somebody else. And so, like jealousy, fear, anger, why she is not coming when she has given the time. And in that 10 minutes, I felt like I had become 10 years older, I looked my face in the mirror and I was crying. And I was in the hostel at that time, and I wanted to go to my office where nobody would see me. And I closed my room to go there and to cry alone. At that time, she came and she looked very, very beautiful because she was walking in the sun and her face had become very pinkish. She was American girl. And, but she never knew, nobody knew. And I have never told this story of my life, what loneliness means. And I can understand when people feel lonely, what it means. And it comes from the desire, it comes from the attachment to somebody, and it comes from a lot of thoughts, and you feel very miserable. That sense of self is very, very strong, and all that. And when I went to Australia, everybody was asking me, did you sleep well? And then I was wondering why they are saying sleeping well. Is it a problem in Australia also? And then I came to know that loneliness and loss of sleep, they are very much related. So probably people feel very lonely. And even in Canada, when I go for a walk in the park, I see people are just walking with their dog, and they are just not talking with each other. And if by chance they meet somebody, they will say something about weather or about their dogs. So a loneliness exists in, especially in big cities, and because of so many reasons. And tell you about the house where I was staying in Canada. The landlady's daughter, she was about 40 years old, and she was married for about 15 years, and she had helped her husband in the business, and the business was going very well. And then that husband got interested in some other woman, and then they got a divorce. And this woman who depended on her husband for so many years, she was very much depressed, and out of depression, she was taking drugs. And then I was talking with her, and she was saying that there is a way of taking drugs without getting side effects and all that. And then I left Canada, and 15 days after I came to India, the landlady wrote to me that her daughter passed away because she had a stroke, and at a young age. And all this was because loneliness and getting divorced. So this is a very, very big problem in all human beings. And people try to escape from loneliness by drinking or smoking or entertainment. And that for the time being, one can escape, but then it remains the problem. So escaping into entertainment is not the right solution. I even saw three little girls walking on the campus of Sayadri School, and two girls were walking, and one girl was walking behind. And she was saying to the two girls, I know you are talking about me. And she was very unhappy. She was feeling lonely, even with her friends. And this happens to people, even if they are in the crowd. The sense of I, me, and people are not giving me importance enough, that can create loneliness. And there was one professor who lives nearby here in Bhavnagar, and I was coming back from my walk, and I walk always alone and I enjoy walking. And this professor met me and he was going to a temple and he said whether I can give him a company. I said yes. And then he started talking about the loneliness, his loneliness, and the loneliness of other people. And they don't know what to do with the life. After retirement, they don't have much thinking too much about themselves and other people. So some people, I had a friend in Vruddhashram where old people live and they all have a very bad experience with their family and they shout and they are very, very unhappy in Vruddhashram against their family because they are moved out from the family. And when a person goes to another country, another culture, and he doesn't have any friend, like the way I went to America, I did not know anyone. And I had many, many problems, all kinds of problems, academic problems, food, health. I was very weak physically also. And economic problem, academic problem, all problems. So I was feeling very, very lonely. So when a person goes to another culture where everything is different, I was expecting that people will be interested in Mahatma Gandhi or Vivekanand because I come from that background. But they are interested in football and sex and films, Americans. So I felt very lonely for at least for 1 year. And nowadays, many people feel lonely due to comparison on social media. If they post something on Facebook and not many people like it, they feel very bad and then they compare with other friends who are very popular and they feel very lonely. And sometimes a single person who is not married and he's searching for somebody, he has not found any girlfriend and he sees a married couple going in the car or on the scooter and they are very happy. Through comparison, he feels very lonely. So there are many, many reasons for this loneliness, and it is an inward poverty where the I or me is very, very important. But aloneness is wonderful feeling. Aloneness means you really want to like to be alone and you be very creative and your mind is it's like there is no self in that. Everything is one, like all in one. That is the root meaning of aloneness. And I enjoy looking at the birds, watch everything, and everything looks wonderful in that because there are no many, not comparison with anybody. I don't want to become somebody. I have no interest in money or power or position or respectability. So the mind is free to look, and there is so much beauty around. And I found such beauty after reading Krishnamurti, looking inward, looking at the cause of all this anger, fear, jealousy, loneliness. I could see it coming, and to see it coming, one needs a curiosity, a freedom to look, and intensity. That is why Krishnaji said that freedom is at the beginning to look. And once we are able to look at whatever is coming through something which is not thinking, then thinking moves in a very proper order and it doesn't create problems. So that sense of looking clearly at thoughts and feelings arising, this Krishnaji calls it awareness or intelligence, which is in a different dimension than thinking. And sometimes people say, I am aware, but I am not finding freedom. Then it is not awareness. It is just a thought of awareness. Not real awareness is different than thinking about awareness. So in Krishnamurti's teachings, there is a possibility for people to come to that dimension of looking, which can look very, very clearly what thinking and feeling is doing, and one doesn't get entangled with what is the thought is doing, and the thought moves in a very straight line order without leaving any mark. As that's why Krishna ji said, the eagle in his flight doesn't leave a mark. The scientist does, because scientist does analysis. Scientist using thinking, and then that thinking is also used in personal relationship. And I know my professor with whom I did PhD, and he was so much involved in his world of research that he really neglected his family, and the family run away, wife and child. And then the professor became very, very sad. So he really could not see how his wife and child were feeling, though they were living together for many years. So this is the real problem, that we get so much caught up in our own world, our own desires, our own problems, that we don't see what things are going outside us, like a cow moving, and you can feel whether the cow is peaceful or cow is suffering if your mind is free to look at the cow. So there is, when there is no sense of I or me, no thinking, pure awareness in which we can see things very, very clearly. About the animals also we can see. And that is the real challenge. That is the real um, thing to come to for any teachings, whether it's the Krishnamurti teachings or it is Upanishad teachings, where they are asking, who am I? So one has to go very, very deep and be able to look at thinking and feeling in a different way. So, okay, I have said many things. If you have any question, you can ask.
Sir, I want to ask a question here.
Yeah.
Does this mean that in all this loneliness, relationship is involved always?
Wagmare
Either
sir,
the-
first raise the hand and then ask. So if you directly ask, then anybody will be asking directly. Hein? So please take care.
Okay. Next time I will take care.
Okay.
So my
Thank
question
you.
is, in loneliness, always there is a question of relationship. And in aloneness, as the word itself says, there's no second is there. Nobody is there. Even self is not there, or there is no relationship involved.
Yes.
Is it that?
There is a relationship, but a relationship without images. Like in husband, wife, or friends, there is a relationship, but it is based on what you have learned about the other person. And then through that images, you are looking, and the other person also looking at you with that. So husband and wife, when they live together for many, many years, they develop images. And then after many years, sometimes I hear them saying, a man, that I could not understand my wife, though they lived together for many, many years. So that is what I said in my last talk also about Upanishads, when the sage Yajnavalkya talks with his wife Maitreyi, and he said, a man loves a woman or other not because of the body and the mind, but because of the soul, the Atman. So Atman loves the Atman. That is the Upanishad language, but in Krishnamurti language, it is two people looking at each other without any images and looking very, very fresh, very clear. That is the way I looked at Krishnaji when I first met him, and also later on.
What Harish Tanka sir has to say?
Sorry?
What you have to say, sir, on this?
On what exactly?
Aloneness, aloneness, there is no relationship.
Wagner sir, ask directly.
Okay, thank you. I'm not asking now anything. Okay.
Tanka sir, please go on.
Let others ask.
Tanka sir, please go on.
I think at this point in my life,
Yeah.
having read a lot of Krishnamurti, I could spout endlessly on what Krishnamurti has to say about this. But I don't want to do that. My concern more is with the understanding of the self, because I realize that that is what, in a sense, we need to do. I certainly need to do, is to understand the self. I start with myself, but also others, and to understand the self in relationship. So my approach to this is to see, I think there was Mr. Verma was saying, it's coming from the self. I agree, it's coming from the self, but many of the things are coming from the self. Aggression, violence, desire, all of which affect our lives positively, negatively, pleasure, all these things, they come from the self. So if we are trying to understand the self, then at this moment, we are directing our attention towards loneliness. And so my focus is, what is this? What exactly is loneliness? This is more questioning. I don't want to give answers. I think what we do here is questioning. So what exactly are we calling? We all have some experience of it within ourselves and other people. What is this thing they're calling? Most people, you see the language says, I feel lonely. You don't say, I think I'm lonely. And as you were saying, I think it works the other way around. Thoughts may bring feelings, but feelings also bring thoughts. I feel lonely, and that makes me want to do certain things, either be depressed and commit suicide, or to seek out people. Some people seek God, some people try and go to gurus who try and so the feelings produce thoughts and actions too. It's an interplay all the time between thought and feeling. So what is exactly, how can we focus and discover what is really happening and what is special about loneliness? Because different from, say, anger or different from violence, what is it that we refer to? Some people will say it happens in the heart. I feel it in my heart as pain. What does it mean? To feel something in your heart, not in your brain or not thought about something. Yeah. And it seems a lot about the focus is on feeling. And I think it's important to try and understand what feelings are in relation to thought. Of course, we know on some level that they're all related, but if you're focusing on this feeling. And I would like to say at this point that it is my observation that the US is a country which is very feeling oriented. People there talk a lot about their feelings. They consider them important. They know that they realize that thoughts are not the best way of resolving things. Thought can never bring about love. And they recognize that kind of thing, but they then turn to feelings. They say, yes, what you feel is really important. This is what gives you energy. What do you feel for me? What I feel for another person? These feelings. So there is, to me, inherent in the question of loneliness is inherent the idea that somehow feelings are very true. Feelings are much more clear, important than thoughts are, right? So this is when I look at loneliness, I'm trying to discover about loneliness. And this is what's one thing that I'm mentioning about loneliness, that it seems very much related to feelings.
Yeah.
And I need to understand what feelings are and why we make the distinction between feelings and thoughts, and how feelings will bring us so, and people can feel so depressed, they can feel so lonely. They don't say, I think I'm lonely. They say, I feel lonely. Then they commit suicide. They feel that nobody is in the world for them. They feel that they can't do anything. They feel powerless. They feel, see, there's a whole range of human experience of the action of the self that is in this level of feeling. So I think any examination, so while I completely understand, because I've also looked at that, this, how thoughts produce feelings. And actually, if you look deeply down, they're not that separate. They are both functions of the movement of memory. They are processing that is taking place in the mind and the brain. It's a material process. Both feeling and thought are both material process. What is important for us, if you're trying to understand this, right? And not to question of aloneness and what it feels like to feel alone, but to focus on one particular thing, which is this question of loneliness and of feeling, and the importance of feeling that we give, importance that we give to how we feel. So I think that.
May I say
Shakti
something?
ji,
Can I say something?
Sir, Wagmare and Harsad Parikh, sir. Shakti ji wanted to go, so he wanted to comment on something. So let him comment first, please.
Yes.
Shakti ji, if you have not left, please come forward. Shakti ji, please unmute yourself. Shakti ji, please unmute. You are not able to unmute? You are not able to unmute?
Yes, now.
Yeah,
Now
please.
I'm able to unmute.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. It's just, a question, it rose in my mind. Often it comes. You see, loneliness is, when I look at it, what happens that after reading Krishnamurti, when there is loneliness, is, if I look at it, it is a psychosomatic disturbance. And but I see two problems in that looking. One thing is, if it is too much disturbance, I tend to escape. That is another thing. But sometimes I can look. And there are two problems they arise. One is that I see that I am somewhat concentrating on that loneliness. I'm not, you see, it has become exclusive because I might be trying to get rid of it. This is one thing that happens. Nevertheless, what happens is that the disturbance becomes more acute, but thoughts, they stop refueling it, and its texture changes. It doesn't go, but the texture changes. But then the last question that arises in my mind, that I have never been able to look at this disturbance, this loneliness, as if I am that. You see, I am standing separate from it. So I see there is some sort of, incompleteness in my observation. Just that question I just wanted to share. Thank you very much.
Harsad Parikh, sir, and then Wagmare, and then Deep Verma. That's last. Harsad Parikh.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. when we say understanding oneself or looking at thoughts and feelings, how does one really look? Is it through thinking and feeling itself, or there is something else, the real? Because if we are looking at thoughts and feelings through thoughts and feelings only, we are remaining in that plane of thinking and feeling. So to understand means to see clearly what is thought, how it is arising, when it is arising, whether when the anger is arising, there is that ongoing effortless awareness. If it is there, it can see that it is coming, and that seeing is the action, perception is the action. So once we have that sense of seeing, not through thinking and feeling, but through a different dimension, then we come to know that yes, there is something else apart from thinking and feeling. And if that becomes very, very important thing in our life, it can become like our nature. We don't need to make an effort to look, but looking can go on like that. So this is what I have found after looking at myself. And in that also, I don't need to repeat what Krishnamurti says, because I can see what is coming within me, and I can speak from that, not from, of course, we can, all Krishnamurti, what he says seems very obvious to me, actually, most of it. There are something which I don't agree, but otherwise I say yes, yes, yes. Every sentence I feel make a tick mark. Yes, it is like that. What is there to think about it, you know? So, okay, I have finished.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Sir, it is very interesting to note, if I feel lonely, then I'm caught up in loneliness. And
Sir,
but
sir,
if when
I am declaring 4 persons asking question. Wagmare first, be precise, then Pradeep Verma, then Harsh Tanka, then Rama Rao, sir. That's all. Now you can go ahead, but be precise, please.
if I'm caught up in loneliness, then I is that loneliness energy. But if I escape and I involve myself in some entertainment, then I becomes entertainment energy, and then it becomes free for the time being. It depends how much that intensity of loneliness is there. If it is not that intense, then I may become free immediately. But if it is very intense and very deep, and then probably it will not, for some time it will give me relief, and then it will not give. So this also aspect we have to look into. What do you have to say?
Yes, whether it is loneliness, everything is interconnected. Fear, anger, jealousy, loneliness. We can't solve one problem at a time in this way. So the only way to look is to look at the source from where all these problems coming. And the problems are coming from the self, I or me, which is separate than somebody. And that self comes from thinking. So one has to really look at thinking, and either one looks at thinking through thinking, then it remains intellectual. But there is a different way of looking at thinking. And when that happens, then we really see the beauty of it. And
Pradeep
then there is
Verma
a
ji.
freedom. Yeah. Yes.
Pradeep Verma ji. Pradeep Verma ji, and then
Yes,
Harsh
sir.
Tanka.
What I feel is that when we describe and explain a state without being in it, for example, we are discussing loneliness. We are not in that state of loneliness. So usually what happens is, so either we are imagining or assuming something and then talking in words. They are all either memory or thoughts. So this is what I see. It doesn't help, because when I am lonely and I see my loneliness, in loneliness, some signals may be there to help me out. But here, most of the psychological things, when we discuss, without being in that state, usually we may say yes or no to that, but usually it may not help. That is what I feel. Thank you very much.
Tankha sir, Harsh Tankha. Harsh
I
Tankha
want-
sir,
I
then
wanted to-
Ramarao, and then finally Parikh sir will conclude it. Time is passing very
I
fast.
wanted to respond briefly to the gentleman who was saying that he sees himself separate from loneliness. He cannot see himself part of the loneliness. And I would say to him actually that that's a very accurate observation. You are actually seeing loneliness, because the essence of loneliness is seeing yourself separate. And when you're seeing that separation, you are actually observing loneliness. That separation is the loneliness. That's what brings about loneliness. Whenever we separate ourselves, we shut out, we say that is not us, then that process of separation is what brings about loneliness. So that is the observation of loneliness, the observation of separation.
Ramarao sir, and Ramarao. Ramarao sir, please. Please.
Sir, what I want to share already, that just now that Tanka sir, they shared it. It's over.
Thank you. Harshad Parikh sir, please conclude. Time is going fast.
Yeah. Yes.
Harshad Parikh,
Yes.
take 4 minutes and conclude.
Why Krishna ji was able to help many people who came to him with many different problems, because he was free, his mind was very clear, and he could see what the other person is going through. Maybe he himself might have gone through some problems and seen very clearly how these problems are arising. So Pradeep ji says that only when you are in loneliness, then only you can speak about loneliness. I don't think so. I think that only when you are free from loneliness and other problems, you can see clearly how these problems, what is behind it, So that without that freedom of seeing non-verbally whatever is coming, everything will remain very intellectual and at a thinking, feeling level only. But if we have seen a dimension different than thinking and feeling, and it has become very important to be in that state where we can really look at anything, not only when the problems are arising, then only look and discuss and read, not like that. Anything which is all the time something is coming to our mind. We are not thinking, but the thinking comes to us, happens to us. And one can really see it. I see it sometimes when I get up early in the morning. I catch up some song repeating one line of the song which I may have heard previous day or 1 year ago or 10 years ago. But it is possible to see that way whatever is coming, and with a curiosity, not in order to solve the problem. That is very narrow approach to just to look in order to solve problems. We look because we are very curious, and not with an answer, not with the solution, but just looking. And that looking can go on and it can reveal whatever is happening. So I don't know whether you follow this. If you have any doubt, you can ask, but I don't think that even Krishnaji talked for many, many years, but very few people could come to that stage where one can really look at the thinking as it is arising from awareness or intelligence. And that is why he said, when that dimension is awakened, then you don't need to understand anything. You just see. And that seeing is the action. So I feel very, very in quite agreement with what Krishnaji said. And we had discussed with him about this problem of understanding. And he said, there is nothing to understand in this field. And then Pupuji said, sir, why do you say there is nothing to understand? And again he said, I said there is nothing to understand. Then he again said, do you agree? And I said, sir, I agree with you. Then Krishnaji said, you tell to Pupuji, why do you say that there is nothing to understand? So I said, there is only to see clearly whatever is unfolding, because understanding could be either intellectual understanding or real understanding is seeing, in that there is no words. That is what I feel, that there is a different way, and that is what Krishnaji wanted to do in students, teachers, in humanity. A new brain, he said, a brain which can look fresh, not carry on the knowledge, though knowledge is necessary for our daily, but not psychological knowledge. The factual knowledge is necessary. So, okay, I finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is a 7:31 time. The speaker will be the same. Harshad Parikh, if you wanted to ask him, you can ask him. Harsh Tankha will be again there. He can contribute whatever he wanted to contribute. It is already 7:38. So I declare meeting finished. So please close it. Modak sir, please close it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.